Hello, 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 and welcome everyone to Kingdom Scribes. I am your host, Crystal C. Davis, coach with Beyond the Book Media, speaker, and so many other things. And tonight we have the honor of having Miss Juli Wenger with us tonight, talking about her book. She is the author being showcased tonight, and we are super, super, super excited to delve into her writing process and to talk about her book, Fired Up, Fulfilled, Free. And I am excited because I was a part of the beginning of the journey, and
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear how God has moved and what He is doing right now. And so we just want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. Go ahead and tap into and tag your kingdom cousins and let them know that we are on and they can come in and share with us and let them know that Miss Juli Wenger is our guest tonight. Again, we say welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your busy evening to come and share a moment with Miss Juli, learning about her book, Fired Up, Fulfilled, Free. I am in love with that topic. I am in love with that topic. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Juli, how are you?
I am so excited. This is one of those milestone things with releasing the book that I have been looking forward to for months of being able to share about it and it being done. It's done. So I'm excited.
Yes. I am excited for you. I am so excited for you. If you're joining us right now, go ahead. If you're on Facebook, please go to streamyard.com/Facebook so that we can have access to your comments on this side because we
Mm.
are streaming via StreamYard and we want to make sure that we can see your comments and Miss Juli hear all that you have to say. So again, I am your host for tonight, Coach Crystal C. Davis with Beyond the Book Media, and I am here and have the pleasure of speaking with and expounding on her works with Miss Juli Wenger, who has been through the boot camp or the challenge with Beyond the Book Media. She wrote her book through the Arthur Academy, and now it is finished, as she just said, and we are excited about it. Juli, I'm going to ask a few questions. It's just going to be a sister talk, and we'll go back and forth, and you feel free to expound. And so let's go ahead and get started for the sake of time, okay?
Yeah, let's do
So,
it.
so just go ahead, Juli, and tell us about yourself.
So I like to introduce myself this way. I am love, joy, strength, light, and grace. And it's been an interesting journey for me in getting there because part of it has been the detaching from my identity being in the roles and the titles. But in terms of a more traditional introduction, I am a coach that focuses on identity and purpose, and I'm an entrepreneurship mentor primarily for Christian entrepreneurs. And we really look at how do you build a life and a business that serves your calling without sacrificing your faith and your family and yourself in the process. I'm also a mom to an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old and an 18-year-old stepdaughter, which is a long story, and a wife of 17 years and a worship leader. And I'm back to school this fall for a theology leadership thing that I
Mm.
did not anticipate. There's a lot going on in life. And most importantly, though, I am a Jesus follower and a daughter of the King.
Oh, what a wonderful introduction. And I love that you started off just saying, I'm love, joy, strength, light, and grace. You know, so many times we say, oh, I'm a mother of these, many, and that. And I love the fact that you tapped into the attributes of that makes you the wonderful wife, mother, and all of those things. So I am excited to meet you. Welcome here live again. Love, joy, strength, light, and grace. I really, really receive that. And so tonight we're talking about your book, Fired Up, Fulfilled,
Mhm.
Free. Tell us about your book and who your book is for.
So, my book is about this journey from fear into the freedom that exists when we are following and we're living in our calling. And it really walks people through what is it that we're afraid of? And often that's tied up in things like I'm not enough or I'm too much. And we look at how we get in our own way. And the subtitle of the book is actually Know Who You Are, Get Out of Your Own Way and Live Your Purpose.
Okay.
And the tangible outcomes that we work into as we start to identify fear and step out of fear, because fear
Mhm.
is not our portion. Fear is not our birthright, but we step into who we're created to be as we start to understand, who am I and whose am I? What is it about me that reflects him? What is it that defines me when I strip away all those roles and titles? And then we can start to get more clarity on, what is he calling us to? What is
Mm.
it that, bigger picture than a job title, because purpose is not a job. Okay, purpose is something that's bigger picture. My purpose is not to be a coach. I'm a phenomenal coach. A coach is an assignment, but my purpose is not coaching. My purpose is to go and be a voice and be a tree shaker and to inspire people and to bring them along into living out their calling so that we can collectively march together and go bring more of God's children home. And the coach thing right now fit, and then the speaker thing fit, and then the author thing fit. So anyway, back to kind of the concept and who it's for, it takes us through this process of, okay, now I understand who I am and why I'm here. How do I live that? So, in terms of the target, it's kind of me about 4 years ago. It's those people who are sitting there going, is there something else? I feel like there's something else. And there is. But we get kind of stuck. And it's for the people who God's calling to live more boldly, to live bigger, to lean into those dreams that He's planted in your soul that have always been there, but that maybe you've been scared to execute on, or you've told yourself some story of, if I go chase that thing, then I'm going to be rejected, or people are going to judge me, or I'm not smart enough to do that, or that's too egotistical. We have all of these stories we wrap around things to keep ourselves safe, to keep ourselves small, to keep our needs being met. And so much of it is subconscious. So much of it is default. And so this is a book that shakes people out of those patterns. It says, hey, there is something else. That whisper, that Holy Spirit whisper in you that's saying, psst, come this way. Let's go do something together. Let's go create something together. There's something I custom created you for, and
Wow.
custom created for you. And it's so much better. It's so much better than what you're trying to build on your own, right? Because we have many plans, but his purpose will prevail.
That part. Oh, I love it. And if you see me kind of looking over to the side, I have my handy dandy notebook. I am writing these little nuggets down. What I loved is that you said you had to identify fear and what that was. And you
Mhm.
had to ask yourself, what am I afraid of? And then you decided, you made a conscious decision to step out of that thing in which you were afraid of. And then I love you when you said purpose is not a job. Purpose purpose to be a voice, be a tree. And then you talking about shaking things loose. I was like, come on here, Julie. And then I love that you said in your purpose, you find that you get to collectively march together with others and help bring them out so that we all can get to that place in which we are called to.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Okay. That was very good, Miss Judy. So the next question I have for you tonight is, what inspired you to write your book?
I will try to keep this concise. Um, I'm a talker, so feel free to rein me in. The the wall that I hit about 4 years ago was a big one. I had been building a real estate business for about 10 years. I had spent my entire life people pleasing and success chasing and trying to prove, ultimately to me, I think, but I thought it was to everybody else, prove that I was enough, that I was valuable, that I was lovable, that I was worthy. And I pushed and I hustled and I planned and I executed my way to what people would consider success. I got there, to the proverbial there, and reached this point where things looked really beautiful from the outside, right? Like nice house, nice neighborhood, good school, beautiful children, long term marriage, $500,000 a year business. And people were starting to come to me and say, how do you do it? But inside, that imposter syndrome, that fraud was like, I don't know that I deserve this. And at the same time, while I'm sitting over here in what people consider success from a world's perspective, from a cultural perspective, I was thinking, I don't want this. This isn't filling me up. This isn't enough. It's not, there's got to be something else. Like, God, why are we doing this? I didn't build this business so that I could be anxious and overworked, so that I
Mm.
could be not being a present mom to my then very, very little children, so that I can just worry all the time. I was a mess. My marriage was going to be a mess, and my kids were going to be a mess. Everything was just like, I couldn't keep it up anymore.
Mm.
And one of the things that I realized, because I started to really turn back to my faith that was always there, but it was like, I'll call you later, faith. I'll call you when I need you. I started to realize that I didn't know who I was, because I had been trying to live into other people's expectations for
Mm.
so long, and to reach my perceptions of what they thought success looked like, or what they thought enoughness looked like. I didn't know who I was. And that was a really tough thing to sit with, because how are you supposed to figure out what you want to do with your life, what you're called to do with your life, if you don't understand this foundational piece of who am I? And so there was this season of coming back to, okay, God, who do you say I am? How do you see me? Send me the people that tell me how you see me, that show me how you see me, because they can reflect that back. And he sent me an army. And out of that season came this, I am love and joy and strength and light and grace.
Wow.
And that is how he's reflected in me. That's my essence. Those are parts of me that just exist if everything else goes away. And then I began to see, because I could start to look at my identity differently. And we walk through this tangibly in the book of developing people's identity and getting that clarity that goes beyond the, I am a daughter of God. Or, for whoever's listening, you might be a son of God, you might be a daughter of God. Like, that is your identity. And how do we take that step further and create an anchor? So once I had that clarity, I could look at life and say, well, if I'm these things, but I'm trying to meet all of these expectations, do all of these expectations everyone else has? Do all of these standards that everyone else has, all these bars that I think that they've set, I mean, some of it's not even real, is that aligned with who he says I am? And so much of it wasn't. And there
Mm.
was a freedom in that, because I could look at all of these standards and all of these expectations and all of these cultural things that we ascribe to ourselves as enough, that we're supposed to go chase and compare ourselves to other people about, and just start to let them go. And as I started to let that go, and I started to build something called boundaries, which were new to me, I also started to get more clarity on, okay, well, then what is it you want me to do? What is it that is next for me? Like, can we just fix this real estate business thing so it's fulfilling? And he was like, no. And I started to see that where he was leading was not something that I could really lean into fully in this real estate space. I
Wow.
couldn't empower other people to live out their calling by selling them a house. It just didn't fit. And so he had me abruptly jump out of that business, wash your hands, walk away kind of thing. And I argued with him. I did. But as I went through this process, and then he led me into coaching, and I started to take other people through this process. And it didn't start as a process, but it turned into one over time. I started to see how we live in this culture and we live in this time where so many people have lost themselves. And so
Mhm.
many people spend their lives wrapped up and consumed by comparison and
Right.
reaching for other people's standards and living someone else's story. And
Wow.
God's over here like, hey, I have something so much better for you.
And
And we're
specific.
like, but that person on social media did this thing, and I need to go and be that so that everybody else thinks that I'm enough. I'm going to go look to creation
Mm,
for external validation instead of looking to my creator. And it stops us from living these lives that we know. Okay. Like if you're listening, you know that there is
mhm,
something that is bigger than you can imagine. But we get
mm.
stuck in this swirl of, am I enough? How do I prove I'm enough? Am I too much? How do I,
Right.
avoid being too much and being judged and facing social rejection? Because that's the number one fear.
That is, you are talking good, and if you tapping into all of this in this book, it is sure to be good. So let's go to the next question. Tell us a little bit about your writing process, and do you use a unique method? What did the beginning stages entail? I heard you talk about how God moved you from this space, had you ripe your hands of real estate, but then you become this. Okay, now it's time to write a book. Tell us about that process. Where did that thought process come from? What was the writing process like? What unique methods did you use? And
Yeah.
what was the beginning stages like for you?
So I thought I would write a book someday. I think that's where most people sit. Someday I'll get to that. Someday I'll do that. And I've been fortunate that God has sent me people who are authors to be part of my circle. And so I was encouraged, and I kind of happened my way into this map your book out challenge because a dear friend of mine was speaking at it and I wanted to go support him. And so I was like, yeah, I could map out a book. So I did, and it was hard. Okay, it was hard. But it helped me to see that it was possible. And then God gave me the drop everything, go write my book. Everything. And I had my plans, okay? Like that month that was coming when we did book writing boot camp was supposed to be networking and client attraction and all of the foundational things we need to do to build businesses. And he was like, no, I got that. You go do this thing. So, in terms of process, there there's something very important about understanding how you're wired and how you learn and how you hold yourself accountable and how you can organize yourself. And so I sat down with this workbook as part of this challenge, trying to map out these sections. And this is necessary. Okay. Like I know you guys talk about that in the author coaching. You have to have a framework of some form or you're going to get lost. And I sat down with these papers. I brainstormed. I got stuck. I brainstormed some more. I got stuck. I sat on the floor and cried about it. Like it was a whole just frustrating experience. And I'm like, God, really? And then I came back to it and I actually ended up downloading this book writing software called Scrivener. And what I loved about it was I could plug in chapters and I could plug in sections of chapters, but I could drag it and drop it and move it all over the place.
Hmm.
So for me, that helped me to organize my brain and coordinate in a way that it was like, okay, well, now I can mine my old content. And that was another key piece for me was going through Instagram and workshops and talks I'd given and master classes and all of these different pieces of content I've been building over the years or old journal entries. Those things are gold. Of what have my conversations with God been? What have my frustrations been? What have the amazing things been? And look for where is there already pieces of what I
Hmm.
consistently talk about that I don't have to recreate completely from scratch. So the next important thing for me was jumping into book writing boot camp. And I am externally motivated. Okay. I know that I am better at accountability when I have deadlines and I have other people I'm reporting to. I don't know if that's like an ADD thing or if that's just a thing, but I knew that that was going to be a necessary piece for me in actually getting it done because you come up against all your stuff when you write a book, all of it,
Mhm.
like the emotions, the warfare, the stories, all the things, the imposter syndrome. Who am I to write this when I'm still struggling with my own enoughness? Like
That
that
part.
kind of stuff. And so stepping into this space where we had dedicated time daily, we're going to sit and we're going to write together and we're going to have prayer and we're going to fill you back up. And you're going to have these small groups. And I'm still connected with my small group a year
Mhm.
later because we just had this opportunity to encourage each other and pull each other along. And I think it's so reflective of the journey that we go on and the call for all of us to travel together
Wow.
because we're going to have those days. And believe me, I had them where I wanted to quit and I didn't want to do it. And it just sucked. And those women that were in that group with me, like, no, we see what's possible for you. You will not stop. We are going to keep marching. We're going. And I would do the same thing for them because they hit their stuff too.
Wow.
So actually getting that first draft out was very much underpinned by being in that space. And I almost finished it in our, what was that, 5 weeks, 4 weeks of boot camp. And it took me another week or two just to wrap up the end of it and get actually into, okay, now what's next?
Wow. So that leads me to our next question. So now that you've gone through, you had that accountability group, which I love, love, love. When it comes to the Brand Arthur Academy, those boot camps or what have you, whichever one you were in, that accountability group that still goes on afterwards, that camaraderie, that growing together, as you talked about, marching our journey together is a beautiful thing. So let's go into the publishing. What was the process like for you, and why did you choose Beyond the Book Media as your publisher?
Mhm. The process was, it was hard. And I say that because I thought that God had worked on my pride while I was writing the book. And then
Mm.
I finished writing the book and I got into this phase, this time period of editing and publishing. And he kept stripping stuff off. He kept working me through things and triggering things. And there was so much else going on. Plus, when we write something like this, or we step out as kingdompreneurs, as followers of Jesus, like there are forces that are against us. There are going to be attacks. And I saw attacks on me. I saw attacks on my kids. I saw God use all of it, like all
Mm.
of it. And it was hard though, because I had to keep choosing, okay, no, I'm going to keep going. No, I'm going to keep going. No, I'm going to keep going. I feel raw right now. I feel emotional right now. I don't want to do it. And I mean, here's the key piece. And this is part of what God's led me through and what kept me going is that our purpose is for us, but it's not about us. The
Come on.
reality was, if I didn't finish writing this book, the people who needed it, the people who were waiting for me to pass by them because God placed something in me to give to them from Him, they wouldn't get the transformation. And the cost of that is too high.
My God. Ooh, you just said a whole mouthful. The cost is too high. Let me write that down.
I wrote about this in the book a little bit, but we talked
Mhm.
about that because this is one of the things that gets in people's way is we start to get wrapped up in our own self-worth and our own belief in ourselves and our own, well, I should be here and I'm here. But really, it's not about us. It's not about our fear. It's not about our comfort. It's not about how ready we feel because I don't believe God is
Woo.
concerned with us feeling ready. Like, no, we're going now because my power is, greatest in your weakness, which is not fun. Okay. I have a love-hate relationship with patient endurance after the last couple of years. But the concept, I remember reading Ezekiel 47, and it was actually something that one of my accountability women had told me, like, you need to go read this as I was writing the first draft of the book. But there's a story about this man being walked up beside the river and crossing the river at regular intervals, and it keeps getting deeper. And then he says, and I turned around and I was surprised to see trees. There were trees all along the riverbank. And he was surprised, probably because they weren't there. That's how it hit me. And Holy Spirit says to me, those trees are the people you pass.
Mm.
Those trees whose leaves never wither, those trees that never die, those trees that produce fruit, those are the people that I
Mm.
have assigned to you that you need to pass by so that I can work through you to reach them so that they can grow and they can root and they can produce fruit. So the opportunity cost, when we think about it in that kind of a context of us just not showing up to the party because I'm uncomfortable, it's just not an
Mm.
option anymore.
Woo! Let me stop you right there, Miss Judy, because you all on people's toes. And for those that are joining, I see that more people have joined our live. We appreciate your time tonight. I am Coach Crystal C. Davis, and we are speaking with Miss Juli Wenger about her book that she has written through with Beyond the Book Media called Fired Up, Fulfilled, and Free. And give me that subtopic again, the
Know
subtitle.
who you are, get out of your own way, live your purpose.
And she just dropped some gems. So I pray like you see me looking to the side because I'm writing my little gems and nuggets down that I must meditate on. And so you said all of that, but you didn't tell us why you chose Beyond the Book Media as
Yes,
the
we didn't get
publisher.
there yet. It was really important for me to have a partner in this process that shared faith with me. And working through this boot camp process and being in that environment with the coaches that were involved and just with the caliber of author and people that were there, it it was something where I said, okay, God, like, do you want me to look anywhere else? It's like, no. Okay, then let's do it. And I mean, it didn't hurt that a good friend of mine had published with you as well. So there was that kind of referral piece, right? Of him saying, like, I love them. They're great. I'm like, okay, cool. So, I mean, I make decisions sometimes pretty quickly, but that one I at least mulled over for a couple of days. I was like, do I have your go ahead on this? And if I've got your go ahead, then, I need you to fund it because we're going to have to figure that out. And he did, right? It's just like stuff started showing up. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's do
See?
that. So, I mean, it was kind of simple, but really important kind of core pieces
Right.
of the equation because I don't think that if you are writing a faith-based book, Christian book, and you send it off to any old publisher, that they're going to be able to look at any of the content and say, hey, that verse is wrong, or this is out of context,
I
or
love
just catch some of those little bits and
it.
pieces that are
Yes.
so common within the Christian author space.
Right. I love that. I love that. Um, Connecting with faith based that understand your journey and therefore they can read with an eye and a lens of Christ and say, hey, well, or either I know some of the editors, because I'm in the process myself, but some of the editors will read something and say, hey, as I was reading, and the Holy Spirit said there was a little bit more, something that you didn't add, and having that level of
Mhm.
accountability
Yeah.
from someone that is attuned and partner with, as Prophetess Chanel says all the time, partnering with Holy Spirit, and having a team of individuals around you that you've
Mhm.
walked that journey with in the writing process. And if you can get through that process with these same individuals, it would just be natural, you would think, to just go over and go through the final process with them. And so thank you so much for taking that next step, and we are so excited that the Lord led you to stay the course and to matriculate over to the publishing side. We are so glad that you did that. So you talked about why you wrote the book, what inspired you, how God shifted and moved things in your life. You
Yeah.
made some very good points about dealing with fear and how that has led you to so many other different things that we'll talk about later. But tell me what you would say are the top 3 takeaways for your readers that you want them to walk away with after they read Fired Up, Fulfilled, and Free.
It's a tough question in some contexts because there's so many pieces, but I think that it boils down to two fundamental pillars to start with. And one of those is really having clarity on your identity, understanding who and whose am I? Because without that, there is no more clarity. Without that, we're unrooted. We're getting tossed with the wind and the waves, right? There is this who am I in you? And in that, there's a level of relationship building, right? There is I have to be connected. I have to be spending time with him. And when we have that, and we call it the first lens in the book, of it just gives us more clarity, then we can start to move into, like I said before, the purpose piece. And that's another piece that we're specifically looking at and walking people through, of saying, how do we define that? How do we get you more clarity about that? Because then when you have that combined with identity, we've got this just clear picture of life. And it makes it so easy to evaluate opportunities. And it makes it easy to evaluate, how do I show up in a situation? What kind of business do I start? Like, there's just all of this clarity that opens up, and this freedom that comes with it, of knowing that, okay, I have guardrails now around what God says my life is going to look like. So having those two pieces in play is so important to me. That gets me really fired up. And the other piece that is just coming to me right now is that we get to abandon a life of fear. We get to step out of the fear, because the fear is the thing that underpins all the not enoughness and all the too muchness and all the perfectionism and all the people pleasing and all the controlling and micromanaging, all those behaviors and those self-sabotage habits that we have. And we can start to detach from that and say, no, that's not mine. And here's how I can step through that and I can leave it behind. Those things create this momentum and this trajectory for us to actually live out our calling.
Oh, wow. So, for those of you listening, and if you did not grab the nuggets of the 3 takeaways, the first one, Julieism, as I'm going to call them, is understanding of who you are. She calls this the first lens. So we're dealing with your sight here. She calls this the first lens, looking into yourself. Then the second lens she would call the clarity on what is your purpose. And it helps you to see what contributions you are bringing and what that looks like in your life. And that third lens, if you will, is that your value, your enoughness, and your worth is settled. She wants to make sure that that's settled inside. For those of you just joining, please go to StreamYard.com/Facebook so that we can see your comments here, because they are good. And we want to make sure that Julie sees what you're saying at this time. But she did give you those 3: knowing who you are, clarifying your purpose, and then understanding your value and your enoughness. Yeah. Because once you get that identity together and you identify with Christ, you really figure out, and it's not a wondering, that you are enough. Oh, Julie, those are very, 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 very good nuggets. Oh, that's good. Let's go to our next question. What advice would you give to authors or even entrepreneurs wanting to start, or those in the process of writing their book?
Understand why. I think this very much ties into this purpose piece of, your purpose is for you, but it's not about you. We need to understand, what's the goalpost? What's the target? If we are writing a book for our own ego, if we're writing a book just to say I'm an author and that's like some tick box, it's going to be really tough to get through that process when we get tested, and when the attacks show up, and when the frustration shows up, and when our ego shows up and says, no, let's not change. Let's stay here where it's safe. Having a purpose to the book, having a why for the book, is one of those things that helps us not just to focus our attention on what are we writing, but to pull us through on the days when it gets hard, because it does. There's no sugarcoating that. This whole thing is like, you don't understand until you're in it. It's like an old house renovation. If you haven't done it before, you don't get how much of a pain in the butt it is. And I say that as I finish a kitchen renovation. So it's very raw. But this understanding, like, God, why? What is the purpose of this thing? What is the purpose of me spending this time and this energy? And, backstopped by, do you want me to? Right? Is this something you're calling me to do? Because then give me the clarity. And if this is something you're not calling me to do, then let's not, waste time. Now, I think people have a story. and everyone's story is worth telling. It's just for me a question of timing, of is it his timing right now? And if it is his timing, I believe he'll give you the clarity on, okay, well, this is where we're going. This is why we're doing it. Or at least as much as he needs to give you clarity on for now, because there's
Wow.
always more.
There's always more. And he's so faithful to give it to you at the level in which you're able to receive, digest, and process. And so that's the key to that.
Yeah.
That was very good, very, very good advice. Give thought and prayer to what you want to do. Figure out what your purpose is. Make sure you're not doing it for your aha, look at me now moments or as a ticker. And then consider the time requirement and impact of writing your book. And I still
Mm-hmm.
have this visual, Julie, of the tree. And you saying, I forget the name of the book that you were speaking of.
Yeah.
But when you said that the gentleman was going through and look back and realize all of the trees that he had passed. And the thing that you said that just resonated with me is he didn't realize the trees were there. And how many people are we passing that need
Mm-hmm.
our story, but we're scared to print, to share it, to write it, to publish it. And so those are very good nuggets just for life in general, whatever that thing is, even if it's not write a book, which I think all of us have a book inside of us, even if it's not to write a book in this season, in this moment, in your journey, what is that thing that God has gifted you in your hand that you have walked past somebody and he said, now I need you to give them some of what's in your hand. And we missed them because we were so busy doing the things that he did not call us to do.
Yeah.
And so thank you for sharing that, because that's what I took away from that. And so we are winding down just a little bit. And I want to go back through before we ask these final couple of questions that I have for you, and just do a quick summation of what we've gotten thus far for those that are just now joining. We do have Juli Wenger here with us, and she is sharing about her book and her process of becoming an author, a God-ordained author of Fired Up and Fulfilled Free. And she talked about her journey. She introduced herself as love, joy, strength, light, and grace. I love that. She is a mother and a wife, a bonus mom, and all of those things. But she started off as love, joy, strength, light, and grace. She took us on a journey of why she wrote her book and told us a little bit about that journey and how she went from this $500,000 realtor to where God has called her, positioned her to be, and how now everything that she's doing is aligned with her being obedient to write her book as God has called her to do. And then she talked about the trials, tribulations, and hiccups in writing the book, and how being a part of the Beyond the Book Media boot camp and or Brand Author Academy, having that accountability, understanding who she was and how God took her through what she was writing about, overcoming fear, in order that she may be able to walk other people through that, through her coaching, through her speaking, and through her book. And so she gave us those tidbits and those nuggets there about feeling value, and understand that as a child of God, and all of us are created, that sometimes we go to creations, people around us, versus the creator who knows all and can give us all information and has already written our book, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then she talked about how she had to wash her hands of that multi-trillion, I'm gonna call it $1 trillion business, and start all over, and how walking her through fear, she was able to trust God because she understood her identity and who she was. And she gave a couple of nuggets that I want to share before we get to these last few questions. She said, our purpose is for us, but not about us. That needs to be on the shirt. Your purpose is for you, but not about you. Then she talked about why, after going through the challenge, her friend, somebody she knew was a part of Beyond the Book Media, had gone through and written their book, and she asked God, and he said, yes, go ahead and go with the same company. But why she needed to go through, or why she chose to go through the publishing process and what that entailed. And so she talked about that. that she went through the publishing process. She said she chose Beyond the Book Media because it came as a recommendation from someone that she trusted, and she had already published with Beyond the Book Media, and that the boot camp was very supportive. So if you have a book in you, she letting you know that Beyond the Book Media is the place to go for writing and publishing. And we'll talk about some things we have coming up. And she said publishers is a whole thing. The writing process takes a lot, but she had no idea what she was headed into. And
Mhm.
I'm in the publishing phase, so I truly understand what she's talking about. And then we asked her, Miss Julie, what would be some advice that she would give to authors, entrepreneurs wanting to start or are in the process of writing a book. And I'll take this for myself since I'm there. She said, give thought and prayer to your why and why you want to do it. Make sure that it is your season of writing right now. Know what your purpose is. Is it because you have something to say? You don't want to walk past your trees and have not planted or given them what they needed, the water in the correct season. The seed wasn't planted in the correct season. Basically saying that you did not walk past the people who God has called to your voice, assigned to your calling, assigned to your anointing. And so we want to make sure we don't walk past those individuals. But she also just said, the purpose and the impact you're called to create. And that's through walking through identity, walking out of fear, and walking into your enoughness and knowing your value, right? And she said, consider the time requirement and the impact of writing your book. And so that's just a brief synopsis or summation of all that we've discussed thus far. And so, with that, where can people find your book and support you?
The book is on Amazon, so you're welcome to pop over there and search for Fired Up, Fulfilled, and Free. And people can support more generally just by following on Instagram or signing up for newsletters, and we can keep in touch that way and let people know about what's coming, which is exciting.
Right. So, to all of those that have taken the time out to come and walk this journey, this conversation, be a part of this chat with myself and Julie, go to Amazon right now, type in your search bar, Fired Up, Fulfilled, and Free, and go ahead and support Miss Julie in her efforts to help us all walk through and walk out of fear, find our identity, know our value, and walk in the thing that we are called to walk in. Thank you so much, Miss Julie. And if I think Nakisa's here, if you have the link, you can drop it in the chat, Miss Julie. If you have your Amazon link, go ahead and drop it inside the chat if
I
you would like,
can, yeah.
so that people can go ahead and find it and they don't have to search. You'll give it right to them. And so, what other products and services do you want to offer alongside your book for promoting and purposes? What do you want to share?
Well, there are right now two ways that people can explore working with me. One is in the one on one coaching capacity. And what I love about that is we get to deep dive into all of this stuff and sometimes out of order because we need different things at different times. So, whether it is I think I have some clarity on who I am, but I'm just in the season of transition and I don't know what the next thing is. Or maybe I know what the next thing is, but fear keeps getting in the way, or I keep stopping myself, or I don't know how to step past this just worry that I'm not going to measure up, this worry that I'm going to fail. And so that's kind of space number one. There's also some entrepreneur mentorship that I pull in there from 12 plus years of building successful businesses. And the other thing I'm super excited about, this is the next God call for me, is I am building out a course. And it's called the Fear to Freedom Playbook. And it is based in part on the book, but we're adding in all of these extra pieces. And one of the things that he has been very clear with me about since the book came out is it's time to cast a wider net. It's time to reach more people than you can support in this one-on-one space. So we've been co-creating this program that's really going to help people walk through all of these steps of letting go of the fear and realizing enough isn't even real. I mean, it's not even a thing, and how too much serves our purpose, and who are we and why are we here, and being in the community that is required to actually walk out that thing, because we are not meant to travel alone, because we're not meant to grow alone. We're not meant to figure it all out alone. So moving
Yes.
along with people, and it's so cool because we see this in group coaching environments all the time, right? There's this resonance that exists when people are in community moving in the same direction. And I always think of Ephesians when it talks about you're all called to move together. And I have this picture in my head of this multi-lane highway, and it just stretches, and everyone has their own lane, and we're just all linked up and we're going. So we've been creating a space for that, a space where people really can hear his call and move forward in faith to live that out. Right now, that's waitlist because we're still finishing the content, and building a course is a whole nother thing. So, the assignments just keep coming. And if that's something that calls to people, there is a sign up for that on our website and on Instagram. That's probably the easiest way to find it. It's just my Instagram link in bio. So yeah,
Okay.
that's what's coming.
We want them to find you. Tell us what your website is, and your Instagram, and or whichever one you think will get the people to you the quickest. Tell them how they can do it.
So Instagram is at Juli Wenger. So just like it shows up on the screen, Juli with no E. And the website is juliwenger.com. So I'm pretty easy to find on purpose.
So those of you that have taken the time to sit through our chat tonight, please go and visit her website, peruse the website, follow her on Instagram so that you'll know what's going on next. And as soon as the wait list is open, or the course, or the webinar, or whichever all she's going to do next, whenever that is available, if you feel led to, please by all means support Miss Juli Wenger. And in supporting her, you will be supporting the kingdom business that she's doing. And
they can hop on and listen to the podcast too. I always forget about the podcast.
Oh,
wow.
Becoming Ourselves. What's the name of your podcast?
Becoming Ourselves, which is also easy to find. But yeah, we've been doing that for like a year and a half, and I love it. Love it, love it.
Okay. Which platforms are you on?
Apple, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon Music, some of the small ones, wherever Buzzsprout sends it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. See, she has a wait list already for her course. She's just out here doing her thing and walking in her calling. I love it, Miss Juli. So my final question for you tonight before we wrap up, and I'll allow you to share any other nuggets and tidbits that you would like our audience to hear. In closing, what is next for you and your brand, and what can we look forward to in the coming months or years?
Well, some of it we just touched on, and this is always such a fascinating question for me because I'm still looking for that clarity. I'm like, what are we doing next, God? And he's given me pieces of this picture. There will be some form of network that is us all moving together along very much the same lines of everything we've been talking about. Timeline beats me. So it's, I think, more short-term, continuing on this trajectory of just building the course out and doing the podcast and speaking more and reaching more people. And we'll see what he brings. So they're just going to have to follow me on Instagram to find out when I find out, because sometimes he only gives us enough light for the next step to take, and that's it. So it keeps me out of I'll call you later, Faith. I'll tell you that.
I love that. I'll call you later, Faith. Yeah, but that's the beauty of serving an awesome God, is that he knows how much because sometimes he'll give us a lot and then we start running and trying to do 12 different things, and he's like, no, then he has to reel us back in because we've gone too far. We put on our cape and we're trying to jump out the tree because we become these superheroes and all of these
slow
things.
down. I know, I heard this. I'm taking the hustle out of my house. I heard that earlier this year. Because Mike Todd, and I was just like, oh, snap. I could just, when something hits you like a ton of bricks, is that slow down.
Right. I had this visual of the little kids, the little boys that you see when they put the cowboy boots on and they put a cape on and they just go running because they can do all of it, And then you see them falling and they're like, oh, and, that visual came when you start slow down. You are moving too fast. Well, let
Yeah.
me tell you, Miss Julie, I remember you in the boot camp, the academy, as you were writing your group, and all that you added to conversations when we had our group settings. I remember the coaching calls and the hour powers where you would share. And so I am truly excited for you, excited about what God is doing in your life and how He's moving and bringing those things together that were aligned with your purpose from the beginning. From Prophetess Chanel E. Martin and the entire Beyond the Book Media team, be it Nikisa, myself, Destiny, Jacinta, we just want to say thank you for allowing us to be a part of that journey, a small portion of it. But thank you so much for allowing us to be a part of that. We loved you in the publishing phase. We know that that can be a little rough sometimes, but I think even in the roughness, He just irons us out for such a time as this, when you get to sit on the stage, or I call this a stage, and you get to share your journey with someone else, so that we never walk past the trees and not remember to plant or water when it is our turn. And so thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of our heart. Are you scheduled for Clubhouse Friday? Are you doing that on
Yes.
Friday?
Yes, we're doing
Okay.
Clubhouse on Friday.
Yes,
This
and
is going to
so I
be
just
so
wanted
much
to
fun
make
too.
sure, and I want to invite our listening audience, our viewing audience tonight. Please go to Clubhouse on Friday. It's at 12 noon. Take your lunch break and join in the conversation. Julie will be there, and she will have a new host. I think it may be Chanel, Nikisa. Someone will be there hosting on Friday at 12 o'clock on Clubhouse. If you don't subscribe to Clubhouse, go ahead now. She'll add a little bit more flavor. She'll give you some other details and tap in a little bit more. You don't want to miss it. If you missed the beginning of this, then you want to go to Clubhouse at 12 and make sure you're there at 12 so that you can get what you missed and then some. It's going to be a
We'll
good
bring
time.
all the fire. All
Yeah,
the fire. Maybe
it's
even
going
live
to be a good
coaching. We'll
time.
see. We'll just,
It's going to be a
sprinkle
good
in.
time as Miss Julie shows you how to be fired up, fulfilled, free. And I am
Shameless plug.
yes, no shameless plug. Hold it up so that when they're looking for it on Amazon, they know exactly what they're looking
Yeah.
for. Go ahead and hold that book up. Be proud of your fired
Right?
up.
It's so
Yes.
exciting.
Yeah, and she really gave fiery nuggets tonight. If you didn't get a chance, I hope you did, but take down some notes and go meditate on some things that she said, because they gave you room to consider and evaluate where you are and what you're doing in your purpose as enough and valuable. And so again, Julie, is there anything else that you would like to share before we close? Any words of wisdom that you would like to share?
What is He calling me to? I've been thinking a lot about community lately and a lot about the people that we surround ourselves with. And it's a little further on in this whole process, but I'd encourage you all to think about, who are you surrounding yourself with? Because when we go through transition and we go through change, there's always this requirement to up level our people, and to find those people who will encourage us and who will challenge us and who will empathize with us and call us up, to find mentors. And when we have those right people, when we have that army, when we're available to the army that He will send us, because He will every single time, we can move with momentum and speed that we wouldn't have otherwise. And the risk of holding on too tight to the old versions of us and to the people who are attached to the old versions of us is
Wow.
that we don't move, because we have these anchors. So there's something to be considered about, in what relationships do we fight for them? Do we adjust? Do we work together to redefine some of the parameters of relationships? Because we change, we show up differently, and we break the rules. We break the social contract that exists. So we have to be patient with people. And some of them are going to be worth fighting for, and some of them aren't. Some of them are just going to look different. And it's not about not loving people, it's about understanding where you put boundaries and where you put your time and energy intentionally, so that you are equipped and supported to do the work that God has called you to do. So be intentional about your people.
Ooh, intentional about your people and intimate enough with Christ that you know who you are. That
Mhm.
is beautiful. And so I want you all to make sure that you tell a friend and tell a friend about Clubhouse on Friday. Miss Julie Wenger, I'm sorry, I keep messing up your name. I do apologize. We'll be there on Friday at 12, and it'll be a deeper conversation. She'll add a little bit more. And I also want to let you all know that next month we're going to have a Map Your Book Out um, 3-day event and a little bit of something else going on. And so that will take place in October, the first week of October. So stay tuned for that so that you don't miss it. And then we'll have another Brand Author Academy between the middle and the end of the month of October. And if you want to get to the place where you can write your book, you want what Julie has talked about, community to help you push through, the Brand Author Academy is where you want to be. But you just want to start out with Map Your Book Out because it's always fire. The challenge is free
Yeah.
and it is fire. We always bring the noise, okay?
Mhm.
And then you go right on into the Brand Author Academy and allow the Lord to go ahead and prep you now so that in October you are available and ready. And as Julie said, that you make sure that you're in the right season to be writing and
Mhm.
that you consider all that it entails before your family, everything. So we're giving you time now so you can get it together before October, which is a week or so away. But we want to make sure that you are ready because it's time to write your book. If you are a
Mhm.
brand, if you own a business, if you've been teaching, if you have a story to tell, I think Beyond the Book Media is where you need to be, and we will help you get through and navigate the journey of becoming an author. Again, I am your coach and your host for tonight, Crystal C. Davis. It was my pleasure to speak with you, Julie. Thank you for your
Thank
nuggets and
you.
your gems. Thank you for closing us out with such impactful information and power. I feel empowered to keep on pressing in my process as well. So thank you so much. You all have a wonderful evening. Good night. Bye bye.